Welcome everyone to our Enlightenment Series seminars. There will be 12 sessions focusing on the examination of truth from three perspectives: philosophical, psychological, scientific, and additionally, various religious perspectives. We do ask that you keep your questions towards the end, so we will end at about 15 minutes after the hour. And if you can keep your questions non-denominational, because we do want to make sure that we have a rich discussion that consists of all the friends who are here with us. I don't think I need to have an introduction for Dr. Riazetti, so I am going to go ahead and welcome him, but will include one in the recording. Please, Dr. Riazetti.
Oh, thank you very much, and good evening to you all. I know some of you are joining from East Coast, Canada, and I apologize for the late hour, but I think you have enough pills that I offer you that you can sleep with it, at least tonight. Have a good night, sleep of confusion, question, and perhaps some reflection. What is the topic has to do with one of the most important, perhaps, concept that humanity has always been after: search after the truth. What is truth? Is truth something which objective, is universal, is subjective, is absolute, is relative? Does belief system has anything to do with truth? Do we really look at the world based on the lenses that we call belief systems, or really we see things based on the truth, meaning the way that they actually are? One of the most important prayer, if you will, that I have seen in Buddhism, in Hinduism, in Christianity, in Judaism, and in Bahaism and Baha'i faith and Islam, of course, has been these very famous prayers that no one has really paid attention to. And that is, oh God, help me to see things the way that they actually are, not the way that they seem to be. This is very important because it tells us that not necessarily what we believe, what we observe, what we feel, necessarily that speaks of the truth. Is truth a social construct? Is truth metaphysical? Is truth, according to Einstein, a cosmic reality? Is truth from psychological perspective, which is my field, is a psychological archetype that the people use? Is truth psychological narrative, stories, context that everybody devises? When we are born, are we created with certain instrument in our mind to see things the way that they are? If we have a personality disorder, or if we have some diseases which has to do with inheritance, such as autism, that partially is influenced by genetic factors, is really for the person who has those kind of afflictions or challenges, does that person sees the world the way that somebody else is looking at the world. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, what am I trying to convey at the beginning is that we should take this question very seriously, because we are living in a century which is bombarded with different groups, whether religious, whether political, whether philosophical, that say we are the beholder of the truth. They even sometimes tell us to investigate the truth. What do they really mean? Can you investigate the truth without having some kind of instrument? Is science really leads us to the truth? Is truth really scientific or religious? Or the truth is something above it and beyond it? So these questions are the basis of the sessions that we will have together. And my aim is that provide an environment that you can reflect, meditate, and most importantly, ask some questions from me. And my hope is that we, through the art of consultation, do some reflection, that we can get closer to the truth. Do you know there is a book written by Arnold Toynbee, which is called Change and Habit. Change has to do with continuity, and habit is a natural tendency to keep the status quo. The challenge of humanity has been a struggle between these two. The civilizations have been created based on these twin principles. The fact of the matter is that Toynbee, who is a historian, one of the famous historians that humankind has seen after perhaps heard it, that he says humanity is bound by limitations, and therefore limitations causes humanity to experience fear, and sometimes fear causes resistance to change. But change is something natural. It is like a flow of the river, and no one really can stop the flow of that river. Is truth changeable? Sometimes you say truth is one. You say truth cannot be multiple. What does that really mean? I do not want to make things complicated, but please pay attention to some of these statements that have been made. For instance, when they asked Jesus, that I look at it only from philosophical stand and not necessarily a religious stand, because I believe that in such a zones we have to consider something which can be understood by every person, regardless of the contextual background, whether it is political or religious. When he says, I am the truth, I am the way, what does that really mean in 21st century? What does I mean? What does am mean? What does way mean? Is there any way that is the truth, or the way is only a gate to the truth, is a channel to the truth? Is really Jesus the truth? What does that really mean? Psychologists looks at this thing very closely. Or can you and I really find the truth outside of ourselves, or truth has to be internalized? Is truth equivalent to love? When I say to someone, I love you, what does that really mean? Is love without recognition is possible? If you do not have enough knowledge of someone, can you really love that person? But when you say, I know you, what does it mean? Does it mean some fundamental characteristics that the person has? Is there any difference between character and behavior? Is the character the truth of an individual, or the behaviors that manifest of that individual, or both? As you can see, a simple question of searching after the truth becomes very complicated. Let me give you another way of looking at it. And I hope Neda John will let me know when it is about 15 minutes before my presentation that I can wrap it up. Okay, Neda, I appreciate it. How do you and I really know the truth? How through our senses? Is the five senses that we have really leads us to the truth? Or there are some other senses in a human being, which I believe, as a psychotherapist, as a scientist, that there is, at least we have 10 senses, at least. Do we really ever examine those 10 senses? For instance, is the power of imagination helps us to even imagine what the truth is? Takhayyul, to be able to imagine. Why some people, such as Einstein, he says the power of imagination is more important than the power of thinking. Is really a person can get closer to the truth if he cannot imagine a world outside of the box that he or she has made of any concept? Please pay attention to this. There is another faculty in us which is called thinking. Mutafakkara, tafakkur, fikra. From psychological and philosophical standpoint of view, power of thinking, although is very important, but it is not really that important, because it is not really the answer that gets us to the truth. Thinking means just observing the component of any concept. But to know the component of something, that doesn't mean that we can fully understand the archetype of that thing, whatever that may be. Another faculty is comprehension. Comprehension simply means critical thinking. How many percentage of people you know around you that even think, let alone critical think? Can you do a critical thinking without asking questions? You do not ask questions to challenge. You do not ask questions to make yourself feel better and make somebody else to feel lower. To ask questions, to go beyond the boundaries that senses have created of the reality. It is interesting to realize that those people who throughout the history of humankind have reached to the station to see a glimpse of the truth, whatever that truth is, they have used the faculties that are inner as well as the faculties that are outer. Please pay attention. The distinctive feature between the human being and an animal is that animal fully operates based on senses. But in human being, there are many faculties. So the question that I want to conclude with that example, if I know myself, do I really know the truth? What does to know yourself mean? What does self mean? How can I know somebody else if I do not know my own self? Please pay attention to this phraseology. Why such a people such as Krishna, I consider Krishna a highly evolved philosopher. If you consider him a religious figure, that is good too, but either way, what has contributed to his elevation is Gita. I believe that that book is very influential on the people who want to understand what the truth is. Gita introduces to us the concept that you need to have a discipline to understand the reality. And he, for the first time, introduces universal reality. He believed that the realities are universals. Realities are indeed the true realities that speaks cosmically. Cosmic reality is reality. So he had then, some people believe that this book belongs to 3,500 years before Christ. Some people even go further to 5,000 years ago. But my intention, when I read it as a student of philosophy and psychology. He says, truth cannot be discovered by a reductionist approach. I don't know whether I am clear with that term or not. You cannot, through reducing or using an object and then you define the world. Rather, you have to have the ability to understand the universal truth or archetypes, as Carl Jung called it, that through those eyes you can recognize the less degree of truthful concepts. What does that really mean? Krishna believed, in fact, the term yuga, that you know that 21st century uses it a lot, is nothing but exercise of the mind and the soul to understand the universal reality at any given time. And the more you try to understand that universal reality, the more you become detached from transitory concepts of the world. This is very, very interesting. That is to say, I want to simplify it. When I say Habib, if you ask me, what is your name? I say Alex Habib Riazati. Then you may say, he's a confused guy. What does Alex mean? I say, well, because I was in America, Alex and Habib, Persian, Arabic, and Riazati, maybe my great-grandfather liked Italian, so Italy, it becomes all subjective, objective. But Krishna would tell me that, Habib, your reality is neither Alex, neither Habib, neither Riazati. You are defined by how you think. How you think is defined by how your soul actually functions, and your soul, in fact, only reflects good thoughts, good feelings, when it looks at the universality of concepts. This is why there was a term which Hegel used, Kant used, Plato used, Socrates used, Jesus used, Muhammad used, Baha'u'llah used, and that is the greater spirit. What does that really mean? I do not want to get involved in religion at all, because I don't believe these things are religious. These are concepts that helps us to understand the reality. Now, let me bring it down to the earth. To know thyself is to know the truth. What is myself? Is myself separate from you, yourself? Is when today I told someone I love you, and you have to be careful in America. You do not just tell everybody I love you, especially if you are Persian version. You may get some nasty text. It says, hey, hold on a second. You never say, maybe I love you, unless you have a good sense of knowing me. Please pay attention. That person who told me was extremely intelligent to utter that, because with our knowledge, our love increases. So the question is truth has anything to do with recognition? If your knowledge increases, does it really mean that your inner knowledge also increases? your knowledge from science, does it really make you more aware of yourself and realities around you? Please pay attention. So, the first and the foremost are these questions. What is truth? Bertrand Russell, who I respect a lot, he said, the people do not discuss truth. The people discuss belief systems. My belief system might be different from your belief system, but there is no such a thing as my truth versus your truth. Please pay attention. Truth cannot be owned by someone. I am the beholder of the truth, and I do not want to go into different topic, but fundamentalism and extremism actually rises when you actually confuse between belief system and truth. The people in this world do not understand that the truth is universal. Truth has nothing to do with my feeling about the truth. So when they tell me, go and investigate the truth, do they tell me to get out of these man-made conception of the truth and go to something metaphysical aspect of truth, as the people such as Plato, Kant envisioned? Please pay attention. But now another aspect is truth something static, or truth is something which is dynamic? Or even a question which is higher than that, is truth something? Or truth cannot be defined, but we only by aid of the truth, we actually construct our social realities. That brings us to another very important topic. Is truth a social construct? Is truth a mathematical construct? These are the topics that I would like within these 10, 20 sessions that we have to examine. I will invite from here on the people who I respect because of their humility, because of their insight, to share with us how they see the truth based on their profession. Only for your information, I do not know whether dear Neda, our host, shared with you. These groups that are in this session, this is not a religious form. Therefore, do not come with already defined answers. Do not try to impress each other. The first and the foremost quality of any researcher of any truth, whether it is scientific or religious, is the feeling of humility. Humility from the kingdom of names. From kingdom of names means from these transitory names, labels, positions of the world. We need to free ourselves from the chains of slavery to the ideas if we are after truth. or we are researcher. I want to even give you a synopsis that if you want to be a true seeker, the foremost quality is to break the chain of mental slavery. Please pay attention. It is very hard, as Toynbee mentions, when you have lived in a culture, by a tradition, by some harsh economical environment, you have certain belief about the world and about how it should run. You have to let go of those chains of mental slavery. Please pay attention. We do not have anymore in a modern world Habib to become the slave of somebody else. Physically, you don't see on the street of New York or Los Angeles the people being chained and then somebody drags them. But think, don't you think in 21st century we are more chained than actually the era that literally the slavery in a physical sense was practiced? When you have a certain habits of thinking that you cannot let go. When you are still in the 21st century, you are the follower of another person who says that he has the power to define the truth for you. Unless we detach, the quality of detachment is very important for the person who goes after the truth. We have to be detached from what we want and have an open heart and open mind to understand what comes in from the world which doesn't have any prejudice. I cannot have prejudice and hope to understand the truth or search after the truth. This is why amongst the highest quality of a true seeker is to do not have love or hate in his heart about anything. It is very, very interesting. Why? Because hate repels you. You hate Habib. That means it doesn't matter what Habib does. You even do not consider him a human. Or, on the other hand, I love such a person. But love, if it is not rational, if it is not meaningful / spiritual, because everybody is a living spirit, living soul, then my love is emotion, and emotion brings commotion. This is why, as a psychotherapist, I say, don't get involved emotionally with anybody. Emotion always brings commotion. That commotion can come after 10 years of being together, 5 years, 2 years, depends. But if you and your relationship is based on a spiritual meaning, when I use the word spiritual, means beyond limitation, beyond what you can really touch. You know, some people have energy that refines you without they even talk. Before they even say a word, that quality to be silent, to live at the moment. Let the truth flows through you. You become like a channel, not a director. It is, this is why they say it is beautiful in the Buddhist scriptures, in Islamic scriptures, in the Baha'i scriptures, in a Platonian scriptures, the works attributed to Socrates. Make me a hollow reed, make me a channel, empty me of my own desire, empty me of my own wants, that I can find that universal law which is operating without me. Please pay attention. So search after the truth. First, you have to become eligible to become a researcher. Another quality is that do not establish truth and then go after it. Because then why do you go after it? Say you're a Muslim, or you're a Buddhist, or you're a Baha'i, I don't know. For me, religion is something personal. For me, what is important is the quality of a human being, how I treat you, how I respect you, how I cause transformation around me. How do I do a selfless act of service? This is what I call my religion. This is why a religion has a root that majority of the people who are adherent to the religious systems have forgotten. Religion comes from a word. Religio means to reunite. We are all divided within our own selves. My feelings, my thoughts, my admissions, admirations, they are all segregated from each other. Religio means bring these parts of you to become whole. This is why there is a term in religious systems, which again has been misunderstood by almost majority of the followers of religion, is the word holy. Holy from the root holis, H-O-L-I-S. This word means whole, means healthy. Oh God, make me holy, means, oh God, make me healthy, make me not to be hypocrite. I don't say I love you, but at the same time, my action shows that I even do not care for you. Do you see that? So before we go after the truth, we have to cleanse our own selves. And when they say to know yourself is the first step to know the truth, means, Habib, examine yourself, bring thyself to account each day, as majority of the scriptures teach us. Every day, have an accounting of yourself, Habib. What did I do? What didn't I don't do, which I should have done? Did I make somebody really saddened? Did I really say something crafty? Or was I really nice to a person that I said, I love you, only because of emotion that I had? Or I truly express love. To know yourself is a first step before I go after the truth. To know yourself. But how do I know myself? What standard do I use? Is there any universal standards to know myself? These are the topics that we should discuss. Is humanity is something that has to be considered as one, or humanity should be considered, or cosmic reality has to be considered as whole, one, or we should consider them as a separate entities. How you look at these things influences how you assume what the truth is and how you actually address the truth. So I think the time that I allocated is over, according to the note that I got from my supervisor, Neda. But please pay attention. If I didn't leave you with anything, my dear brothers and sisters in heart, I am inviting you to critical thinking. I am inviting you to use the highest gift that God has endowed us, God, universe, whatever you call it, ability to think, to reflect, to analyze, but not to paralyze yourself. If we do that, we see that we are in the 7 valleys that have been written by mystics, by the philosophers, by religious figures. The first valley is what? Is to want, search. Isn't that right? Attar, Rumi, Jesus, Baha'u'llah, Muhammad, and it has to do with the truth of all things. You have to have that love to find out. This is why the people who think, I don't need to find anything. Well, that is the beginning of downfall of humanness. Because unless we find the truth, or at least we get on the path of getting closer to the truth, we cannot be human, because we are becoming human. We do not want to become robots. We do not want to become slaves of ideologies. We want to be human. And I end with this very important lesson that I have learned in the field of religion, philosophy, psychology, and sociology. Every one of us has ability to find the truth. Every one of us, 7 billion. We have to create an environment that the people can unravel those hidden mysteries that are within them. Is education has anything to do with it? What type of education? Has culture influenced the truth? And. I stop right here. I give you some homeworks if I can. Am I allowed to give homeworks, or this is only you have come to find the truth, means to find a friend, to find a classmate, or you come here to sleep a little bit? I don't know. Why are you here? But I'm assuming that you are all after truth of some kind. So the homework that I have for you is the following. Is truth something personal or universal? That is my first question. Next time I go around, whether you are 45 people or you are 100, it doesn't matter. And you know my sessions, whether there are 2 people, I do serve you the same way that you have 300, 1,000. That doesn't mean anything to me, is a quality. So truth is subjective or objective? Second question. Do we need a metaphysical means or source to lead us to the truth? Is truth a social, religious, scientific, or political construct, or it is beyond them and above them? Next time, which I believe, what date is it, Neda? December?
Sure, it'll be December 9th.
December 9th, I have invited one of my good friend, co-worker in the field of critical thinking, and also a person who I respect a lot because of a strategic development that she does. Dr. Nagavi Marjan has accepted to make a presentation about this very subject, and that becomes the beginning of next time. And then we go on to those questions, why it is important. Let me tell you why. Because unless we do not know what the truth is, we cannot unify humankind. If we do not know what the truth is or how should we get to the truth, then we cannot establish the universal codes of ethics. And if we do not have universal code of ethics, whatever that means, then we concentrate more on differences rather than unification of humankind. I stop right here. And after Dr. Nagavi, I will invite people from diverse background to come and share their perspective. I try to show you that this world is filled with the people who can help us with the culture of learning and create an institute, which I call Institute of Learning the Skills of Love. The aim of truth is to establish love among humankind. I'm sorry for the lengthy discussion. Okay. Neda Jan,
Yes.
it is over in your hand.
Yeah, so friends, thank you so much. And of course, Dr. Riazetti, especially to you for really offering these thought-provoking questions. Very, very true, because at the end of the day, we all do have to be true to ourselves and answer these questions. So if anyone has a question or a comment, please use the raise your hand feature or just wave, and I will try to get to you and make sure that, oh yes, please, John, please unmute yourself.
Great. So I think it's amazing that you're talking about this subject. And one thing that is very unique, I think, to people who are now very young and also people who are traditionally old is that they don't question anything. It's whatever they say. it is what it is, and that's it. So my point is, the best source of freedom is questioning things. And it's a virtue. It's good to question things. But the problem is when people ask questions that are inconvenient. And I feel it's that when people ask questions that are inconvenient, not that you're taking yourself out of your comfort zone, but you are having an existential crisis, automatically things turn off. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to feel different. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that we live in a society where it's not that then or now things are worse. It's always been bad. It's just now people know. People read, people can read at least, and people don't get killed if they say something. So my point is, it's just as bad now as it was then. And the worst part of it is that we are willingly, in this generation, we are willingly blinding ourselves to asking questions. We are willingly choosing to remain deaf, to remain blind, to not listen to other people with other opinions, to instantly hate people because they say something that the other person doesn't like. And in my life, just practicing this one thing to accept everyone, as long as their egos don't get in between me and them, it's very nice to be everyone's friend. It's a freedom, especially when almost half of my friends hate half of my other friends because they like to remain ignorant.
Yes, I think, John, how about we do this? What you describe, which I appreciate very much, has to do with the fact that you have concentrated on the purpose of truth, which to be able to ask questions. See, I know we are living in a world that the people, when they ask questions, they feel they are ignorant that they are asking questions. Or the other people in the world, they think if somebody doesn't ask questions, he's very spiritual, he knows everything. But we know that these are all man-made dogma. In fact, the more you know, the more you recognize how much you don't know. And that is one of the aspects of getting closer to the truth. The more you become holistic, the more you become humble. And the more you become humble, the more you become detached. Detached from judgment of others and detached from you judging others. I, as a psychotherapist, have learned this. I can say to you, I understand you, but I am never you, John. You are you. Therefore, when at least we as a psychologist tell people, yes, I know what you mean, that only if it is true to the most, that means I am not judgmental. That means I am here to become an aid to you to express yourself. Because remember, we live in a world that based on the image that we produce of ourselves or the image that we make of others, we try to define their reality and our reality. And one of the fruits of these meetings, enlightenment, is to say, don't worry about how the people judge you. You just only worry that what you do has a universal impact. Whatever you do, be sincere. Whatever you do, you have a well and good intention, because they know you by your fruits, not by what kind of tree you are really. Okay, next question.
Yes, Nuria, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm following Dr. Riazati from Zoom to Zoom. I am learning from you, Dr. Riazati. Thank you. My question is, in search for truth, everyone thinks that their way is new way, quote unquote, new way. So how do we say this to other people, that other ways are old? I mean, quote unquote, using the word old.
Yes.
Because everyone thinks that their way is new and the ultimate new. Yeah. So how would you?
See,
how would we?
what is old really? What is new? I remember when the famous Greek philosopher, I believe, said, everything is changing and you never look at the same thing twice. So we are all changing. Is there an old truth versus a new truth? No. Truth is universal. Its implication by the growth of humanity at different stages requires a different definition of what helps to reach and uphold the truth. Let me give you an example, if I may. This is not a right way to say my truth versus your truth. There is no such a thing. Truth cannot be possessed by anybody. There is no such a thing as my truth. You know why I say that? Because if even the whole world, 7 billion people, if 7 billion people accept an ideology or theology, that doesn't mean that because the people believe in it, what they believe is true. Do you see what I mean? Because look at this world right now, the number of the people who believe in superstition, and they have called it the truth, is more than the people who really are having the glimpse of truth in themselves. So the first and the foremost is to recognize there is no such a thing as my truth versus your truth. Is my belief versus your belief. So the question is whether this belief system that exists help us to freely investigate our ways and navigate our ways towards the truth. Because truth is unknown. Remember, truth is not something that I can touch it. I just can feel, think, and I use the word that majority of you are hoping for, serenity. When I feel peace within me, when I feel that when I sleep at night, I haven't harmed anybody directly or indirectly. That feeling of peace, of justice, of unity create a closer conceptualization of truth. Therefore, rather than I tell somebody else your way is old, I examine my own belief system and make sure my belief system has components that guarantees the nobility of the individual and safeguards the social justice of the world and leads it to the unity of the world. Now, if I do that homework about my own belief system and do not try to rationalize my belief system, rather by critical justice. See, I have to have justice. What is justice? To see with my own eye, to hear with my own ear, to investigate with my own heart, not with the judgment of others. Then I become a new agent of change in society. Then I become the cause of social change on the grassroots. And then the people look at my behavior. They look at the sincerity of my motives. I do not go to somebody else and share about my ideology because I want them to become a follower. No, I want them to own the new way, if there is new. New way means a way that guarantees human individual salvation and social transformation. It is a creation of evolution and revelation. Reveals itself through evolution, the evolution of human heart, human mind, and human culture, naturally. So the answer that I humbly offer you, my dearly loved sister in heart, is that don't try to create a fight between ideology. No, just practice your high, noble, human-centered ideas. Leave it, because then they know you by your fruits. And I assure you, when the new comes, the old goes away on its own. It is a beautiful statement by Jesus when he says, you may have an old bottle, but naturally you require a new wine, and a new wine cannot be poured in an old bottle, because eventually both of them will be destroyed. Our minds, our feelings, our cultures have to be all in line with the new spirit of time, requirement of the age in which we live in. So Muhammad beautifully adds to what Christ says. He says, when the truth comes, the falsehood shall go on its own. Please pay attention. We do not need to fight with different ideologies. We do not need to hate upholder of different ideologies. We need to just practice enlightenment, love, unity, justice, and let the people gradually, on their own, by their own, come to the recognition of the source of light. As you can see, this is a process. This is not an event. Nothing can bring us to that level of maturity. No military power, no campaign of a high ideals, the degree in which each one of us translate in our personal life, in our day-to-day operation, these human-centered realities, principles, we then and only then we see the change. This change is transgenerational through education, through training, through free will, through critical thinking, and through exercise of the art of love, compassion, and consultation. Sorry. Next.
Yes, Sarah, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riazetti. As you mentioned, truth is dynamic and relative. And, we should, consider, are we talking about truth in individual life, truth in society, truth in international bodies, truth, spiritual truths, and how these are related. And if we correct the necessary relationships that Abdul Baha talks about between us and each other and matter, environment, whatever, if these relationships come together, that we have accomplished a great deal of truth. But truth is something that in every environment can be different. And as you mentioned, dynamic, relative. Are we talking about scientific truths? Are we talking about spiritual truths? Are we talking about truth in media? What brings salvation to humanity? What truth is that? So
Yes.
if you could define the truth more narrowly, then I think it makes sense to me more. Thanks.
See, thank you, Sam, for your explanation. It seems that we are, at least you are talking about contextual or application of a truth. There is no such a thing as scientific truth versus a spiritual truth versus political truth versus emotional truth. These type of divisive borders about the truth has actually got us away from the truth. These are applications. Before you can be a politician, you are a human. Before you are a religious person, scientist, you are a human. If we can generate a transformative force in each one of us to not become the servant of the context, rather operate by the force of principles which are universal, then the context really doesn't matter. Whether you are at home or at work, whether you are a politician or you are a scientist, you operate by the same principle of truth. You have to be righteous. You have to be faithful. You have to uphold dignity. Please pay attention. The humanity has a tendency to separate things, while in reality is not segmentational. ladies and gentlemen. Reality is a whole. Based on our divided perspectives, we think that the reality also is divided. I give you an example. It is like somebody says, I want to acquire some humanistic, I use the word, spiritual, religious qualities. I say, oh, okay. And you know, because I'm a psychologist, I always ask questions. It's very bad because I'm not a good man. I have to always ask questions. I say, oh, really? How do you do it? He brings me a journal and says, today I want to work on being honest. That's very good. How about tomorrow? Tomorrow I want to work on being faithful. That's very good. And then 7 days a week, 7 qualities. And then he says, what do you think, Doc? I say, well, I think the way that you are going, you actually, by the time you go to the next one, you lose the first one. Why? Because, my dear brother, they are all one. How can I be faithful but not be honest? How can I be honest but not to be just? Do you see that, Neda? Do you see that, Sam? This is the problem that I referred to in the beginning. Be holy, for God's sake. I'm a holy man, holy man. You do not mean a man with a lot of holes in it. You do not want to have holes in yourself. You do not want to be do you know, when I go to the church, I want to practice compassion. When I go to AT&T and Boeing, I want to be very, very rough because I have to. No, no. We want to create a universal principles which are metaphysical. Metaphysical means beyond time, beyond space, beyond context, but let in each context, the beauty of that context evolve, manifest in following those grand principles. So as you can see, Sam, there is no such a thing as political, religious, scientific. These are all emanation of human soul. This is why the solution to the political problems, to the social crisis, to the economical problem is not economical or political or social, is actually what we call humanistic, spiritual, metaphysical. I hope that created more question for you, and that is good. One more question, Nida?
We actually have 2 more. So if we could make sure that they're brief. So Kimia, if you could please unmute yourself, and then we will end with Fuad's question.
Okay.
Okay, Kimia, did you not have your question anymore? Okay, Fuad, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can, please.
Okay. I actually don't have necessarily a question, but a comment. I appreciate Dr. Riazetti, the space that you've created to engage in conversation. I really appreciated the comment of that we as human beings are striving towards wholeness and being and the oneness, kind of the idea of a oneness of humanity. But I was thinking about how this can really only be achieved if we are continuously mindful human beings and aware. And even within the space, I think, you know, in our society, we value this hegemony of normalcy. We value some bodies over other bodies. And I think even within this space, I hear words that are used that even if we don't mean it, we are contributing to the oppression of certain bodies in our society. Unfortunately, we live in an ableist society. Ableism is the discrimination and prejudice against people with disabilities. And so I don't think we're actually oftentimes aware of ableism, because it's just, we're so entrenched in the hegemony of normalcy. So I just hope that I can push this crowd and how we're speaking to recognize and value all bodies, including individuals with disabilities. And as we talk about oneness and wholeness, and as we recognize the oneness of all human beings, I would like to consider that, to avoid language and disability metaphors that's unfairly stigmatizes people with disabilities. For example, using like paralyzed, when you're not really referring to the individual with disability, you're still leading to the oppression of individuals with disabilities. And I think until this comes to your an individual's awareness, we're not able to, you know, be cognizant of the effects of our language. But so I hope that tonight, as I bring this to your attention, that even the metaphoric use of disability terminologies leads to the oppression of individuals with disabilities. And there's a beautiful piece by Ben Moshe Latte. She's an Israeli disability studies scholar, and she talks about avoiding the use of language of disability as a metaphor, which unfairly stigmatizes individuals with disabilities, even though we don't mean to. So
exactly. I hope, you know, I appreciate every word that you said. It is the symptoms of the ill understanding of the reality of a person. See, my aim is, rather than going to every aspect of the social ills that humanity has been afflicted with, I would like to suggest in these sessions that if we elevate our thoughts, our feelings, our understanding of what the reality of a person is, and we really sincerely believe and practice it, then those ills that you refer to, which is one of a billion other problems of humankind, shall perhaps abate a little bit. What I mean is, if I realize that your reality is not your body, is not the way that you walk, is not the way that you look, rather, it is the reality of you, is your soul. If your heart is the love that you have within yourself, even if you have not manifested. So rather than going, because I'm a psychologist and I see these things, how the people become judgmental, how the people try to establish groups that the handicapped person, in order to have a cup of coffee, has to find another handicapped person to socialize with. I understand all of this, but I want you in these sessions which is more of a principal recognition, philosophical understanding, critical analysis of our approaches, of our thinking, to understand that because humankind has been reduced to ashes, you have more respect for your computer, for the machine, than you have for a human. Then what do you expect, my friend? We want to elevate this level that we are facing, that every human being, regardless of the physical limitations, it has a jewel in it. My dear friend, what was the best composition of Beethoven? Wasn't that composition, that symphony, that when he composed, he could not even hear. And then the people who were next to him had to turn his chair that he can see the vibration of the joy that he has created in the audience. Haven't we seen the physicists? Haven't we seen the recent physicist who was majority of his life was on a wheelchair, but he is one of the greatest minds that we have seen? So don't believe that your limitation should define you. Don't believe that your nobility is your appearance. Always remember, appearance is simply a manifestation of a physical environment. So I can even elevate it. Which one is worse? A physical handicap or a mental handicap? If I have full of prejudices, if I think that my way is the best way and your way is the old way, am I handicapped? But I look good. I run a business. I am very active in a society, but I'm handicapped. When I judge people based on their race, their gender, don't you think I'm handicapped? So elevate the conversation. My aim is that these webinars create a space for a dialogue between you when you are out of the webinar. You may disagree with me, which is very good, but think, what does these terms really mean? Is really the language or the thoughts behind the language, the feelings behind the language? You can make me that I don't use the word, which I agree that we have to have a universal language that considers those factors that you mentioned. But isn't more realistic to change my mind and my heart, and then my language will change? Because remember again, as a psychologist, what you utter is how you feel. And how you feel is how you think. And
I really like that. I really like how you saying changing the hearts of men. But however, we also have to start with awareness, because I think there is not awareness of the power of words on human beings, especially like just learning history, the history of words, I think can contextualize also Okay, and I know that what's socio-politically correct is evolving and changing overnight and over time. But for example, the word handicap, the origins of the word comes from the idea of handicap. So equating individuals with disabilities to being beggars. So like, I think also as we bring awareness to our hearts and our minds, I think it's important we learn together and develop a conscious awareness of the power and impact our words can have on others.
I agree. The only thing that I am trying to emphasize is reductionism should be avoided. Change holistically. Be holy. Holy in the way you talk, the way you feel, the way you think. And then if you do that, then you get rid of old theologies that doesn't work anymore. Old thinking process, old conceptions of everything on the face of the planet. And we will get into that concept when I talk about how to change the heart one by one. Last question for
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to explain myself what I understood, and my question is, am I understood correctly or not? So there is no any reality, there is no any truth without humanity. So there is no any truth existing by itself if we imagine there is no any humanity. Truth is just the meaning, it's through the humanity, which means everyone has the truth. Their own truth is the truth. But at the end, that can be all one because the humanity is one. But when we accepting each other as what it is, we accepting the truth. So I'm hoping I could explain what I understood. I'm not sure is this correct or not.
you know, John, what's happening is if I am not here, really is the truth there? Is truth subjective? Is truth objective? Let we build upon it, but I want to assure you, Mr. John, because it is late at night, truth exists independent of you and I. If that truth, and remember, please, you are not the center of the world, I'm not the center of the world. Truth exists because truth is not us. Truth is not our invention. Truth is something, a force, a cohesive force that puts the universe in order. Truth is eternal in the past, eternal in the future. We are all speaking about manifestation of truths. It is two different things. The goal is that we can get rid of these conceptions and misconceptions, that we become a part of that truth within our own existence. Let me give you an example. Why have I been born? خیام است، رومی است، Socrates asked, why am I here? Where am I going? Is that a good question, isn't it? Am I here to make babies, get married, get divorced, and again get married, get divorced, and then at the end I cannot get married because I'm getting old? What is it that I'm after? What mark do I want to make? Another term, Mr. John, that has been misunderstood, especially by religious people. I'm sorry, but these religious people have been the high contributor to lack of morality of humankind. There is a term, martyr, to become a martyr. What is martyr? Martyrdom means to be a witness with your word, with your feelings, with your life, testify to that truth which is outside of you. That when you leave this planet Earth, you actually have made your mark. You are not defined by your riches. You are not defined by your pains, by your sorrows, by your joys, rather, but what you did for the rest of humanity. Do you see the answer to your question? Again, I came from individual. Truth is outside of you, but also inside of you. We need to create from the world inside, to expand it to the world outside, and then recognize that the truth is beyond me, them, whatever exists, whatever is seen, and whatever is unseen is beyond all things. We just approach it, but we never know it fully. Sorry.
We do have one more question, and it's from a lady who's been waving her hand, and I don't want to miss her place. Okay, please, Melinda, please unmute yourself. Thank you so much, and sorry I missed you. Melinda, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. This is my first Zoom. My question is, thank you so much for your talk tonight, and I'm so looking forward to the next few weeks. My question would be that during this process and looking at these concepts, how does a person how do I begin to understand or take this path, and also at the same time not get or feel kind of defeated, or when you're detached but not isolated? Like, is that through meditation, or is that just through your own internal knowing? But how does somebody stay positive in this journey when those around us might not be taking that same journey?
Sure. Do you know, again, your question links to the earlier questions, Melinda, that we are a spiritual beings who have human experience. We never should forget that. Because when we consider ourselves spiritual, simply spiritual, I'm not using it in this religious connotation, which they confuse spirituality with these customs and so forth. I am talking about the reality which defines your soul as a unified being with a high purpose. Then this soul is like a bird within you. This bird always flies in the apex of prosperity. But because it is in the realm of time and space, it has to live with the contingency of the time and space. That means has to come on the ground, has to eat, has to see the competition with other birds, because it is the code of survival, but also has to be mindful that his wings do not become heavy of dust, because then he cannot fly to the apex of prosperity. This is the art of living the life. Life doesn't say the good people do not have hardship. This is a wrong myth. In fact, the life says, learn how to deal with the challenges rather than looking at the challenges and hardship as an evil, demeaning thing. Look at it as an opportunity for growth. And that insight to the realities, Melinda, is make us to grow, make us not to feel stress beyond what is needed. You see what am I trying to say?
Yeah.
That you have to fly while you are on the watching on the earth. You know, that they look at you, you are in the worst miserable situation, but you are still, you are a mover and shaker. Still, you have a higher spirit because you have not allowed these crises to define you. You turn the crisis into victory. If the world offered you lemon, you, because of that high,
Lemonade.
made a lemonade.
I'll
Enjoy.
make a tart.
So I hope that was helpful. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Riazetti. Thank you all for the questions and thank you all for your patience.
So the next session is December.
December 9th at 7:30 Pacific time.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Your service. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.